So, Hannah, we haven't actually recorded like a current episode in a hot minute. We had kind of like our vague July hiatus that we've taken every year. And during that time, we've had some interesting developments in the world, I guess in the US specifically, in the terms of a writers and actors strike. What is it? The Writers Screen Guild?
Yeah, there's two. There's like the Screen Guild Association, and then there's another group too.
Yes. On strike for better wages, better pay, and also preventing the use of AI in writing and also like using your likeness, for anything. But studios want to do that without actually paying you and compensating for it, which is scary. Same thing with the AI writing. Like, I think the aim is to make writers obsolete, and AI is a helpful tool, but it's not like a person. I think it has merits and it has benefits, especially like if you're helping brainstorm and like get ideas together, like if you're writing something, but I don't think it should be used to write a TV show, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, we started using AI at my job in chats, like help chats, and the testing process, it's like glaringly obvious it's not a person that you're talking to. So I think also the fact that writing for like a show and a movie, like especially if there's so much like emotion, I don't know how AI can convey emotion and can convey stuff that like people can, because it's their lived experiences they write a lot of times.
Also, it's like the voice, like a writer's voice is very distinct for different writers, and I don't think like a computer can do that the same way a person can. So anyway, we just wanted to say that we stand in solidarity with both these groups that are on strike. We are not intentionally crossing any picket lines.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because a lot of people, I think, just associate Hollywood with everyone having a ton of money.
Right.
And I think that's like there certainly is a large group of Hollywood who does have a lot of money, but it's not just the main actors and actresses. Like, there's a lot of people who have been in the industry for a long time who do a lot of work who don't actually make that much money, and you're talking about like the crews and stuff too,
right.
Like the people who are like behind the scenes aren't going to be making six figures. So I think there's like this misconception that everyone in Hollywood must be like rich and must have a ton of money and not have any worries in the world. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of people that aren't getting paid fairly and are worried potentially about losing jobs, especially when it comes to writers being replaced. And AI is something in every industry that people probably become fearful about being replaced.
Right.
As things become like more autonomous, people worry about losing their jobs. We don't support people being taken advantage of or not being paid what they rightfully should be paid for the work that
a living wage, just for starters,
Yeah.
Some people,
a lot of them have families and people they have to support too, so we support them.
And LA can be a very expensive place to live.
Oh yeah, the cost of living.
So cost of living in general is much higher than other places. We saw two great movies, both great. What movies are they? I don't know.
Both had really good writing, not done by AI, and very good casts. Yeah.
Good cast, good music.
Makeup, hair.
Makeup great.
Clothing.
Ooh, set design.
Good clothing.
Set design.
Yeah. It's hard because you don't want to just completely stop going to all this stuff, because in a way that also hurts the people involved.
I think they have said that there's no, like, they don't expect people to stop watching things, to stop watching shows, to stop going to movies, and I think
one of the movies we saw is one that's breaking records for its specific type of film and its specific director. And so I think it's important for that accolade, because that's like very important that people get recognized and that there's diversity in like who can be successful in Hollywood.
Right, and to create opportunities for those types of people who generally don't necessarily get opportunities like that.
Yes. So that's what I will say.
Yes.
Fuck old white men and
fuck the patriarchy.
Welcome. This is Research, Rank, Repeat. This is co-host Hannah.
This is co-host Alyssa.
And we are back with another episode. Alyssa,
Yes.
did you know that my very good mother just sold me 10 candy bars? No.
That's not even what. What are you saying? Are you high?
Oh, my very good mother just something fudge. No.
That's the scales. That's like a music scale.
Oh yeah, that is.
I think that's the not the brass one, it's the other one for piano.
So those planets.
Those planets. I think it's my mother. My
very energetic mother.
No, you forgot V. Oh yeah, my
Yeah.
very energetic mother
Just
something UNP.
Okay. Anyways,
PNU? Whatever. Well, regardless, we don't remember anything from elementary school, is what we gathered. But we do remember, Hannah, Magic School Bus. Miss Frizzle went to the stars and she taught us about planets.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the thing on Instagram where it's like Miss Frizzle riding around in your anal tract?
You sent me that. Yes, I have seen it.
It's funny.
Oh,
Anyways.
God. Speaking of Uranus.
Speaking of Uranus, your moon is in Uranus.
Another joke we've told on this podcast.
We've made this joke. I think we named an episode.
You know, and that one was about the zodiac signs, which are technically affiliated with stars, constellations.
No, I think that was Lindsay Lohan.
Oh, did we? Okay. Well,
we've done it more than once.
We mentioned it in the zodiac signs one as well. Check your horoscope. Your moon is in Uranus. A classic joke.
But anyways, this is a very long intro just to say that
went off rails.
We were given a suggestion a while back.
We were, by a lovely listener of our podcast and friend who has been on the show before.
With a redacted name, but they did have shitty crepes.
They did have shitty crepes.
Yeah.
Our friend Audrey, good friend of the podcast, shout out if you ever listen to this. I know you listen sometimes. Suggested that we rank the planets based on what ones we would most want to live on. Mm-hmm. So now we're taking this in the frame of reference that we could live in any atmosphere. So it's not like I'm going to be on Pluto or Neptune. Also, we're including Pluto. We'll get to that.
Yes.
And then immediately freeze to death because it's like negative 500 degrees. You know, we're pretending that like if we were on this planet, we could live there. Like we could be fine. We wouldn't immediately die. We wouldn't freeze. We wouldn't burn up. You know, we wouldn't choke to death on carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide. I slurred a little bit trying to say carbon dioxide. I talked a little too fast. It happens sometimes. If you listen to our bloopers episode, you would know that. All three of them.
Yes.
But anyway, so we're here to talk about planets.
Yeah. Planets, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good times
and the bad times too, baby. Let's talk about
planets.
Little bit, baby.
Planets.
Do you remember the Schoolhouse Rock song Planet Janet? You remember that one?
Vaguely.
She's like a woman with like red curly hair flying around to planets, Planet Janet. That's all I remember because our JT, our mother, her name is Janet. And so I can only think of that, where I'm like, I don't remember anything else. It's just Janet.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Not really.
She flies around space.
I don't remember that.
Okay, that's fine. We had to watch it. We had to watch the Schoolhouse Rock videos in I think like 4th and 5th grade. We had to watch like the history one, the math
Conjunction.
Junction. What's your function? You know the one I remember the most is the preamble song.
Yeah, because we had to watch it 500 times.
And the Great American Melting Pot. A lot of cheese in that melting pot. Anyway, so we're doing this. I'm sorry, we're a little rusty with recording. Do you have anything else to add, Hannah, before I go into some background that I found from a great source?
No, just that this was, I think, an interesting episode, and I like when listeners suggest episodes, because it gets us something more creative. Sometimes we get in a funk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been it was suggested a while ago. We just finally got to it. But yeah, it was fun to do.
Yeah. It's interesting. So, Hannah, did you know that I got some information from our most trusted source, Wikipedia, but I also got information from the greatest place, NASA. NASA website.
I was also on NASA earlier.
Went to NASA. They have that's the place to go if you need information about planets. So let's talk about planets, Hannah. I like to start first with the solar system. Now, our solar system that we live in, Hannah, is located on the outer spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy. And there are probably, I think, I didn't write this down, but it was like somewhere around estimated like 200 million galaxies estimated in space. Hard to say, it's just a guess based on what we know. Do you ever like think about how vast space is and then feel
because then I think about death.
Crisis? Yeah, and then I get a little bit existential and I feel like panicked. So
I sit there and I'm like, when I die, what happens?
Yeah, so we're gonna leave it there, and I'm gonna rein it back in, Hannah. So we're gonna talk about the formation of the solar system, Hannah. So about 4.5 billion years ago, there was a big cloud of gas and dust. It was hanging out in space. Then suddenly, something happened. Now, it's not known exactly what happened, but a good guess is that there's probably some sort of a shock wave from a exploding star, a supernova, perhaps. A good guess. But anyway, what happened is everything, all that big pile of dust and gases, they imploded inward, collapsed, and created a solar nebula. Do you know what a solar nebula is, Hannah?
I learned at some point, but could not give you the definition.
That's okay. Essentially, it's just a spinning disk. So basically, all that cloud of stuff became a disk, rotating, spiraling disk.
I do know what a supernova girl is.
Oh, zoom, zoom, zoom. Xenon. But essentially what happens is you got this spinning disk, right? There's a bunch of gravity, right? The force of the collapse creates gravity. So what happens over time is this gravitational force pulls a bunch of hydrogen atoms inward, basically creating a bunch of pressure. Pressure increases, and then the hydrogen is turned into helium. And when the helium forms, it created a massive energy release. Boo! Tons of energy. Then, Hannah, you know what was created? The sun. That's how the sun came about. Helium gas. It's basically what the sun is. Hot ball of helium. Further away from the sun, still in the spinning disk, you got other stuff that's just floating around, and it's starting to clump together, Hannah. Clumping together. Big clumping, forming together into big balls. Spheres, as you will. And these things created moons, dwarf planets, and planets, amongst other asteroids and meteorites and small little speckles of things, but created planets. So that's how our solar system is believed to have been founded. You might hear a different answer if you talk to, some creationists and stuff. Oh, 6,000 years ago. Somebody did a little poof, did a little oh, did a little whoop, did a little bit of little. I'm gonna make a circle.
Ooh, I made a planet
and another circle.
Oh, another one.
Oh, and I'm gonna put my hand over here. Ooh, we're just gonna discount that. We're gonna listen to NASA. Yes, they're the experts.
Listen to us.
Listen to us.
We're the voices.
We're the voice of NASA.
We're their representatives.
Yeah. Planets in our solar system orbit a host star. In this case, it's the sun. The sun is named from the Latin word solus, which then solar system. So solus equals the sun equals solar system. In our solar system, in modern day 2023, there are currently 8 planets. There's many moons, many smaller things, and one specific dwarf planet that used to be classified as a planet, and we will talk about that a bit later. The word planet comes from the Greek word meaning wanderers. So it's Greek in origin. I have some comments about some things later, but the first notedly observed observation of planets was from about 2,500 years ago from ancient Greek origin. for this specific stuff that we're talking about right now. So essentially what happened is people without telescopes looking up at space, they were like, there's some weird stuff going on up there. You can see some stars, but there's some things that kind of stood out that had some weird patterns. And so they observed 7 planets. And I say that in quotes, air quotes, 7 planets is what they could observe from Earth. Now, timeline. Essentially, people were seeing our moon and our sun as planets. So essentially, they could see five known planets and the sun and the moon. So in the 1500s, that is when things began to change. So that is when people began to finally believe that the sun was the center of our solar system and our planets, that our planets rotated around the sun. Because previously people were like, nah, it's a flat line. You know, the Earth is the center. Everything else rotates around the Earth. And I think it was Copernicus who came in there and was like, hey guys, I think this is the case. And they were like, straight to jail.
He said, fuck you.
Yeah, straight to jail.
And they said, off with your head.
I could be wrong about Copernicus being, he might have been the guy who thought the Earth was the center, but I'm pretty sure he's the guy who thought the sun was the center of the universe and went to jail. Because they were like, heathen, how dare you suggest that Earth is not what we think it is, just based on guessing. And there's been plenty of other people, Galileo Galilei, there's been tons of people who are very influential, and I'm not going to name all of them. But essentially in the 1500s is when sun isn't a planet, moon isn't a planet. Sun's at the center of the solar system. And then essentially what we had is the first 6 planets through Saturn. So we had known planets were Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So we had 6 planets. That's where we were standing in the 1500s. They could see these things from the Earth. Got 6 known planets. 1781, Hannah, they discovered Uranus. They got up in there.
Discovered mine a lot sooner than that.
Telescopes.
Up the Uranus.
Yeah, basically what happened is we get telescopes around this time. People are like, I think there's a new planet called Uranus. Early 1800s is where we have more planet discovery in the form of Ceres, Pallas, Juno, and Vesta, which were at a time known as planets. Now, currently, they are known as moons. Modernly, they're moons, they're asteroids. But at the time, people were like, whoa, this is a planet. We found new planets. So you had a whole bunch of planets. 1846, Neptune is discovered theoretically. So it's the only planet that has been discovered through theoretical calculations. People were doing math, doing physics, doing astrology, astronomy. There's probably some astrology in there as well, but astronomers were doing work. And they were like, this is a weird abnormality. Let's do a computer computational stuff. And they were like, hey, look, planet should be here based on what we see. And then sure enough, what do you know? There wasn't actually a planet there. Neptune. 1930, Pluto is found. And Pluto is a planet. Until 2006, Hannah. And that's when everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
That's when our worlds changed.
2006, we get a new definition of a planet. Now, the current modern definition of a planet is a round object orbiting the sun and has to have cleared their neighborhoods of other planets and other things. So I because of that definition, Pluto, not a planet, dwarf planet, doesn't fit the criteria. So for us, Pluto is an honorary planet today because growing up, Pluto was a planet. As a children, we learned Pluto, it's a planet, it's there. So to support our childhood of having that as a planet and then being ripped away from us, that's like honestly one of the only things I remember as like learning as a child of something changing, where it's like, hey, you thought this, guess what? You're wrong. Scientists said, fuck you. You thought Pluto was a planet? Go away.
We survived Planetgate.
We did survive Planetgate. 2006, where were you? Where were you in 2006, Hannah? I was in 5th grade. Or 6th grade. One or the other.
I was in one of those grades below. Confused about Pluto.
Yeah. But essentially, let's talk about names, Hannah. So, current modern day planet naming is, for the most part, based off of Roman gods and goddesses. However, there is one Greek god in there. The Greek definition slipped in there a little bit. Those names of those Roman gods and goddesses were established like thousands of years ago. Those have been there. So essentially what they did is then they continued on that namesake of those gods and goddesses for the modern discovered planets. So just to give you some background of what gods and goddesses that the planets are named after, Mercury is the Roman god of travel. Mainly this is because Mercury rotates the Earth, or sorry, my God, I'm sounding like a 1400s English scientist there. Mercury rotates the sun in 88 days, which is the fastest rotation of any planet. So Mercury is the god of, speed, the god of travel, so fitting name. Mars is the god of war, mainly named for the redness of the planet Mars. Fitting, I think. Venus was named for the Roman god of love and beauty, and it was mainly because Venus is the third brightest object in our solar system. Shine bright like a diamond. Jupiter is the Roman god, the king of the Roman gods. In Greek, that's Zeus, is a similar name, same namesake. Saturn is known as the Roman god of agriculture, and Uranus is the Greek god. So he's the Greek king of the gods. So, like, the god of the sky is maybe a more apt name.
God of Anus.
God of Anus. Neptune, so this was one of the planets that was discovered later, is named for the Roman god of the sea. So also King Triton, Neptune, Triton, hanging out there. So Pluto is the Roman god of the underworld, kind of like Hades in Greek mythology. Now, the only planet, Hannah, that has a name that is not derived from Roman and Greek mythology is Earth. Now, the word Earth comes from Old English and Germanic for the name of ground. So Earth is ground, which I think is really interesting because I'll get to this. In other cultures, most other cultures also refer to Earth as the word for ground, which I think is really interesting, that everyone just was like, yeah, this place we're living is the ground, so ground it is. So Earth is the only planet that's got a weird name, just because,
Yeah.
Why not? So in terms of naming things, I wanted to point out, even though we don't use the Greek names were chosen before the Roman names. So the Greek names were given to planets in an earlier time than the Romans did, but for some reason the Roman names are the ones that we use. So I just wanted to point that out. The Greek counterparts being like Aphrodite instead of Venus, Jupiter instead of Zeus. But Greek happened first. I guess we collectively decided Roman was the better way to go. I'm not sure why that was, but here we are. So in terms of the naming of Uranus and Neptune and Pluto, since these were more modern, happening from 1846 to 1930, 1781 to 1930, those three planets were discovered. So Uranus, William Herschel was the person who discovered the planet. He wanted to call it, and I quote, Georgium Sidus, which means George's star. He wanted to name it after King George III of England.
It's like a little, weirdly sexual.
Yeah. Georgium Sidus. George's star. And people were kind of like, maybe we don't name it for King George III, considering he did just lose to the Americas in the Revolutionary War. He lost the United States. How embarrassing for him. But a German astronomer named Johann Bode said, hey, what if we named it for the Latin name of the god of the sky, Uranus? And people were like, sure, good enough. Fits the naming scheme. Neptune. A lot of people were involved with the discovery of Neptune, considering it was a computational, discovery. They didn't actually see it. They didn't actually physically see the planet. So at a certain point, they were like, Le Verrier. They wanted to name it Le Verrier. And then people were like, if the planet's really blue, so what if we did Neptune for the sea? And people were like, I guess that's fine. Pluto. Now, Hannah, Pluto, I think, is very interesting. The name Pluto was suggested by Venita Burney, who was an 11-year-old English schoolgirl who was like, hey, what if you name this planet Pluto? And they were like, done. And that's that.
Who's her dad?
I don't know. I think she's Did she write? I don't know. It was unclear if she like wrote in about it or if like she was someone's child. I don't know, but it was,
like a nepotism situation.
1930, you know.
Maybe it was a contest.
Could have been could have been a contest. It's hard to say. I don't know exactly who discovered Pluto. I didn't write that down, so we're gonna ignore that.
Okay.
Now, the last thing I want to cover before we're done with the background is I thought it was very interesting that growing up we are only taught the Western origin of planets, right? We've learned about the Roman mythology version of planets, and I was like, I am absolutely positive that other cultures throughout time, ancient civilizations had other names for planets and how they named planets. So I went and did some research on that because I thought that would be interesting to know. Same thing with the ancient Babylonians. They also gave names to their deities and gods. So Venus was the goddess Ishtar was the name for the planet Venus. Jupiter was known as Marduk. And then I swiped my hand and I smeared my words, so I can't, if I pronounce this wrong, I'm sorry, but Mercury is Neto or Netta. My apologies if that's wrong for anyone who has a, love for ancient Babylonian words. So in ancient China, actually, they named at the time, the 5 planets visible, they named them after the elements. So Mercury was water, Venus was metal gold, Saturn was earth, Earth was known as ball of ground, so that's another instance of ground being used, and then Mars was fire and Jupiter was wood, so it was named after elements specifically. In Israel, in Hebrew, they were named for the Mesopotamian gods, and also biblical events. So that's where their namesake is from. In India, so in Hindi, the word for planets is grahas, and I might be pronouncing that wrong, but essentially it means to grasp, so like a ball. And so a lot of their planets were named for Hindu legends. So Jupiter was known as Guru, which is like a spiritual leader. Same thing with Mercury is Buddha, amongst other planets as well. But so essentially it was interesting to me that there was a pretty similar pattern in different parts of the world of how ancient civilizations and just throughout history were naming their planets. So I thought that was very interesting that a lot of the time it's related to like gods, goddesses, myths, legends. It's really interesting that it's only China is the only one so far, like the ones that I looked at that had kind of like a little bit of a different way that they were identifying their planets. But just to give a little background for some other places, since we really only get the Western view of history of things like that.
Yeah.
All right, that's what I got.
Yeah, so, like Alyssa said, we're including Pluto in this, so we're going to have 9 total. We're just picking, like she said, we're not taking into factor the fact that you would die if you got out of most of these planets. It's just, this is a theoretical.
It's theoretical.
Yes.
Like Uranus.
Yes.
Or Neptune.
I've never seen it.
One. I think it was Neptune.
To say it's there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so number 9, I went with Mercury. Mostly because it's the smallest planet, which means you're always going to be close to people. Hate that. And also because it's the closest one to the sun, and my pale, pale skin cannot handle that, and I would be saggy as all can be when I get older from all that sun damage.
Yeah. Understood. So number 9, I put Pluto, Hannah. Now, Pluto is a tiny planet. It's absolutely freezing. It averages a temperature of negative 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which I would not want to live in, even if I had, like, thermal clothing. That's pretty cold. Pretty cold, Hannah. And also, it's not a real planet anymore. So, like, it's like a fake. It's fake, It's not a real representation of a planet. And it would be so far away from the sun that you probably would not really get a lot of light in the same way that
scurvy.
You would. Yeah, you'd have to eat a lot of oranges,
vitamin D.
You'd have to get a lot of fruit and vegetables in your diet. And I think that would be pretty sad. I think like I'd have Michigan seasonal depression every year of my life, all the time. It would never go away. We'd have to take like
basically my life.
We'd have to take. Think about the vitamin D supplements you'd have to take. Hannah. You'd have to take like 10,000 milligrams of vitamin D or something.
They would
a lot of milligrams. You'd run. Yeah. There'd be an endless supply, or you would have like rations of vitamin D pills. Yeah. So anyway, not worth it for me. So number 9.
Okay. Number 8, I went with Venus. Mostly just because it's hottest planet. I don't do well in heat. I really don't. I sweat, and I just panic, and it's just not good. Also, they don't have any moons, which is really a bummer.
It is a bummer.
There's studies that show that they had moons at one point. I'm saying they because I'm not genderfying it. No, that was just a mistake. But anyways, I like to think all the planets are women because, except maybe Earth.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
Earth sucks.
I think that's fair.
Anyways, I like moons. I like being able to look up and see the moon, and the fact that there is no moon makes me sad.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So number 8, I have Neptune. So Neptune also freezing. It's a freezing asshole. Super dense. It doesn't have a well-defined surface, so it's pretty much just like freezing, denseless like land. I'd kind of be floating in like an icy, like basically you're in a blizzard at all times. There's a lot of ice. There's really much, again, it's a similar reason. I just don't want to be in freezing all the time. And it's slightly bigger than Pluto, so therefore it's slightly less worse.
Yeah. I put Neptune as number 7. I just wrote, it's a no from me, dog. Same thing as you said, it's cold, it's distant. Also, I've read it has horrible storms and wind, and I'm not about that.
Like 1,000-mile-per-hour wind.
Yeah. So, I would say no. I don't want to have to deal with that, and they can stay far away.
So number 7, I have Mercury, Hannah, and I agree. It's tiny. It's like the size of our moon, which not enough space. Also, the sun is 11 times brighter on Mercury than it is on Earth, and I don't want to live in that much brightness. How am I going to sleep? How am I going to do anything? The glare is going to blind me. We'd be blind, Hannah.
How are you going to vampire out?
I can't. I die.
You lock yourself in your room and
this is the skin of a killer, Bella. Is that what the line is?
Yeah. I don't know.
The vampires would be so shiny that they blind anyone who's not already blinded. Like the refraction. Think of the refraction, how much brighter it would be. You wouldn't even be able to have any like lenses or screens on the planet because just like you'd cause fires. Like
you wouldn't be able to see anything either.
Yeah, the beams of light would be so intense you'd cause fires. So anyway, yeah, I agree. Mercury.
Can you imagine getting into your black car?
You wouldn't.
You'd burn.
You wouldn't get into your car. You would die. You would just combust on impact.
Yeah.
Like you get in your car and immediately combust. So no, I agree. Mercury is not a planet that I want to spend time on.
Yeah. Okay, number 6 is Pluto, and maybe I just have a soft spot for Pluto. I feel bad for Pluto. Pluto's like the child that no one wants. Pluto just gets left behind. It's kind of iconic that Pluto just got demoted.
It is kind of iconic. I will give you that.
It is cold and icy, and I certainly can't deal with that 24/7. But sometimes I prefer the cold over the heat, so that's why it got a few bumps up from some of the hotter planets.
All right, so number 6, I have Uranus. This one is petty because I don't want to live on a planet that's Uranus, because then the amount of jokes that people would tell, endless. People would be like, oh, are you going in Uranus today? Are you walking around Uranus? Are you driving up Uranus?
Every day?
It would be endless. Have you heard of the game, you know when you see like an RV and it has a name? So you add the word anal to the front of it. So it's like anal passport, like anal like spaceship or whatever. You know, so it's basically like you take the name of an RV and you add that to it. Is something that I've learned from someone. So then we go on road trips, you can just like create words. But anyway, the best one, like there's anal airstream is a great one. But essentially, I would imagine people would do this, but with Uranus, where it's just like you just make endless jokes. Also, it's also really cold. And I really have a bias towards the cold, Hannah. I do not want to be freezing cold all the time. It would just be like, it would suck. Because I like winter for like 3 weeks, and then I want it to be done. And then I'm like, I'm ready for spring. Get me out of here. I'm tired of being depressed. I want sunshine. Please help me. So I gotta get out of there.
As soon as you said anal airstream, I thought of that news story.
Oh God, from New Zealand.
Speaking of anal airstream.
Yes.
Shawn Mendes Stitches.
Oh yes.
Throwback.
Stitches. That is a throwback. If you've been around since the beginning, you've heard us talk about the true meaning behind Stitches.
I didn't get to tell the whole story. Alyssa wouldn't let me, but
well, you know, we were just starting out.
One day
Hannah can tell the whole story.
Maybe a special episode. Bonus-ode.
Maybe.
Maybe we'll invite Shawn Mendes on.
He will never come on our show.
He can explain it. He doesn't know the story, but he'll
never come on our show, Hannah.
Okay. We'll see. One day.
His PR team will never let him.
They might.
They know. They'll listen to every episode and then they'll know.
You know, we can never, like, neither one of us was ever going to do this, but we can never run for, like, a government position.
No, of course not.
Because they would find this podcast and be canceled.
In our first 2 episodes, we talked about Shawn Mendes' asshole and Harry Potter erotica. We can't.
We're doomed.
We're doomed.
Okay, moving on. Speaking of erotica, number 5 is Jupiter.
Oh. Number 5.
Yeah. I think Jupiter... It's one of those things where too much of anything is a bad thing. Jupiter is very, very large. And honestly, it's like too big of a planet. Mm-hmm. Like, the bigger the planet, the more shit they're going to try and put on that thing.
That's fair.
Everything's just going to be like... There's going to be too much clutter and too much chaos. And there's going to be too many people. And that's not something I want to deal with. Also... The giant red star, which is actually a centuries-old storm bigger than Earth.
Humongous dust storm.
I don't want to have to dodge that all the time.
Yeah. Just think about how you're just driving along and all of a sudden you're like, oh god, it's the storm. And then you gotta
it's bigger than Earth.
Yeah, and you gotta hope you don't get into it and die.
Yeah. So, that's a no from me.
Yes, I agree. Hannah, we finally have a match. I also have Jupiter as number 5. For similar reason. It's the biggest planet, but it is also just gas. It's got a lot of moons, not as many as another planet, but it does have quite a bit of moons. So you could do some moon field trips. You know, you could hop to the moon, get away from the gas. But again, there's that massive storm the size of the Earth. Think about how that's the off limit zone. And imagine like asshole teenagers are like, oh ho ho, the storm, and then they die because it's the size of the Earth. There's nothing you can do. So on the
plus side, smoking and vaping is probably outlawed because if you light it, combust. You can't light candles though, so that's downside.
Yeah. Again, bummer. So I agree. Number 5, I'm on board.
Okay, number 4 is Uranus. It's very stormy. Not a big fan of storms. It's cold, and I just think that the other 3 are a little bit more promising options to me.
That's fair.
So I don't have anything really bad against Uranus. Again, the same thing, like, oh, you live on Uranus, but everyone's going to live on Uranus. Everyone does live on my Uranus.
Is that a statement you want to make on this podcast?
Yes, number 4 is Uranus.
Okay. Is your moon in Uranus?
Always.
Great. So number 4, maybe controversial. I put Earth. It's a safe bet. It's safe, right? Like, Earth is Earth. Like,
you know it's
livable. It's always a fail-safe, right? I can always come back to Earth. I can get on my spaceship, assuming I have a spaceship, because we're assuming I can live in all these places, right? I get on my spaceship.
You have a spaceship.
Yeah, I go into hyperdrive, I go to Earth, and then I go back home. And I got my parents' house to go back to. Mom and Dad will be like, sure, move back in home. Ruin our lives, why don't you? You know, no, my mom would... I'm sure be she'd be like, I will do all of your laundry. I would love to have you. Yeah, she would be happy to have me at home. So
I'll never cook another meal again.
Yeah, so I have a fail-safe, and that's what Earth is. It's safe. It's a safe bet. 4 is a safe spot, but it's not as fun as some of the other planets could be.
Yeah. I put Earth as 3, kind of the same venue. I mean, it sucks. It's livable, less and less every day.
True.
Physically and emotionally. But yeah, I think it's one of those, it's a fallback. You know, it's there for some time. It's cool. There's some cool things about Earth. It has a lot of water.
Sure does. For now.
It's the most livable planet, and really the only livable planet.
Currently.
I think it's, you know, like you said, it's a safe one. I feel like it had to be at least in the top 3 or 4 for me because it is always the fallback.
That's fair. Now, Hannah, number 3, I disagree with your placement, but Venus. Venus is number 3. Because, Hannah, the potential is there. Think about it. Venus is a similar size to Earth. We know it has a solid foundation. Now, sure, it's fucking hot, and it's got a bunch of gases. Like, it's a huge gas field in the atmosphere. But we don't know what the lower atmosphere is like. That could be easily livable. They're confirmed that there was definitely water at some point. The potential is there, and it has greenhouse gases, Hannah, which means it could potentially create a livable atmosphere, which means the potential is there. Let's also not forget the cultural importance that Venus as a planet had, being the third brightest thing in the solar system, just in general.
Besides me.
Shines bright like a diamond, Hannah. And it is possible. The potential for life is there. The atmosphere is conductive for life, and therefore, I gotta, support it. I support Venus.
Yeah,
I'm here for it.
I agree with everything you said. It's really just a personal preference that when I get hot, I feel like I'm going to throw up all the time. And I don't want to feel like I'm going to throw up every single day.
I do feel a little overheated right now because I don't have
like if I get hot in the car, it's over.
That's fair. I understand. But I think for the planet experience, I think I would have some sort of a cooling suit that I could wear, out in the atmosphere.
Well, yeah.
I got fans going and stuff. Like, I'd be okay. We'd be fine.
If they made that, then yeah, sure. Sign me up.
Yeah.
I would love to go to Venus.
All right, now let's see, Hannah. Do we have the same 1-2 order, or do we have?
We have the same top two at least.
Same top two.
And for me, these were fairly obvious top two.
I agree.
As soon as we talked about doing planets, I immediately knew like these two would be in the top three. Mm-hmm. And then the more I looked at it, I was like, yeah, these are the top two. Number 2, I went with Mars. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's like the Hollywood lore hype of Mars because Mars is like in every movie, and it's like Mars, blah, 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 like The Martian. Like, all these movies come out about Mars. It does seem like a cool planet, and it's one of the more potential livable planets. It's had, like, the most research done on it compared to any other planet that we know more about it. And I think the red planet would be cool. I could meet Miss Martian and John Jones, which would be cool.
Ooh.
Yeah, I just think Mars is, like, it has cool vibes. It's like the kid in high school that you wanted to be friends with, and now they're, like, working at a fast food restaurant, but they're still cool.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mars is number 2. I think Mars is the most, like, planet that is, feasibly livable on in real life is Mars. Like, taking aside, like, the atmospheric, the gravity, like, all the stuff we're just counting, like, in real life, it's the most, the optimal place that we've even, like, it's been discussed. Like, people have talked about possibly at some point in the future colonizing on Mars. You know, we sent Matt Damon there. He was there. He grew things with his own shit on Mars.
Yeah.
He did it. Did he make potatoes? Did he make potatoes?
I think he grew weed.
Didn't he make potatoes too? Is that what he made? Some potatoes?
Weed and potatoes.
Yeah, which is all you really need, honestly. You smoke and then you have munchies and you eat potatoes. And all is good in the world. But Mars has water. There's water on Mars. So we got water source. It's got a lot of clouds, you know. You got some covers so that way the sun's not like immediately, you know, you're not going to immediately burn to a crisp. Yeah. It's pretty. It's a nice red color. It's got kind of like a deserty fun feel. Do you remember, Hannah, the movie, where they send this, like, idiot to Mars, and then he farts and, like, it travels through the tube. It's like Spaceman or something.
Yeah.
And we would watch it over and over again as children. Are
you talking about Spaceballs?
No, it's not Spaceballs. Oh. It's like
I know what you're talking about, though.
But anyway, it's like they send people. Mars is very popular in media and culture, and like as a place they're going to send people to.
Yeah.
So I agree. Number 2. It's not the best, but it is a close second.
But it also might be our failsafe.
It's a failsafe. Exactly. It's almost like the second safe Earth, you know? Like, behind Earth, my second choice, like, feasibly would be Mars.
Yeah. Number 1 is Saturn. Rings are really cool. Mm-hmm. It has, like, 145 moons. I am obsessed with moons, and I love the idea of just being able to, like, walk outside and look up and not see one moon, but see, like, 20. It's
also
cool.
some nice moons too.
Yeah, a lot of moons. I feel like
Titan's a moon.
Yeah,
nice moon.
And I feel like Saturn is just like Saturn never gets any bad rep about it.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
fuck Pluto. Pluto's a dwarf planet.
Boo.
Uranus, meh. But then it's like Saturn. It's like Saturn's cool. Rains and moons. It's like boats and hoes, but rains and moons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, I can get behind ice rings. These rings are just made of ice. Think about you could ice skate on the rings.
Yeah.
You're just Mario skating around. Yeah, Mario Kart.
Tokyo
oh my god.
Drift?
Yes, you could Tokyo Drift on those ice rings. And honestly, the moon's tons of field trip options. Yeah. Like you could take a little day trip to all, you know, like you could, you know how people like scratch off like every state. It's like I'm going to do
national
a scratch
parks.
Off. Yeah,
like, I'm going to scratch
every
off the
moon.
Moons.
I'm
and they
keep
keep discovering
more
moons.
Yeah,
they just discovered like 30 in May. I read.
I know. Just think about the opportunities. They're like, all right, go on a little field trip. Also, Saturn has an electrical current. It's got a really good magnetic field, so, like, you could already have electricity. Like, we don't even have to establish it. You could just, like, hook up some wires, and then you're good to go. Yeah. Also, because Titan. They do, however, the one downside is the windstorms, but wind energy, and solar energy.
Yeah.
You set up those wind turbines, and you got endless power source. You're good to go. I think it's great, you know? I could get down for some ice rings, you know? That's, like, the fun part of winter, where I'm like, I'm going to go ice skating and, like, hang out outside the planet.
Definitely.
That's the only planet that has, and I know it's not the only planet with rings, but it's the only planet with impressive rings.
Yeah, and I mean, that's how you escape the windstorms. You just go ice skate for a few hours.
Yeah, go to the planet.
Come back.
There's a big windstorm. All right, I'm going to off planet.
Or I'll just go fly to one of the moons. I'll be like, I'm going to go to this moon while this windstorm
happens. Go hang out on Titan. They probably Titan's probably like the Vegas of Saturn.
Yeah.
Because it's like everyone goes to hang out there, so there's probably a lot of good bars, some good shows. You know, I could go see.
Can you imagine like the clubs they have at each moon?
Yes.
There's got to be a gay one.
There has to be at least one.
And there's a good shot you're going to get one moon named after you.
Yeah. Because there's so many. Or have named after some people, you know, and I'm sure they'll change the names over time.
I'm sure you can discover a moon and then call it your moon.
Yeah. My moon. Or Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon's got a moon out there, I'm sure.
But yeah, I just think it's cool.
Yeah, I would agree. I think of the planet, it is the coolest planet due to the amount of extra little add-on incentives it's got with it.
Right, because it's like Mars and Earth, it's like, yeah, whatever, but Saturn,
have you seen the ring?
It's like a built-in package.
Yeah, the moon.
You know when someone comes to your hometown and they're like, what can I do around here? And you're like, go to Ramshorn? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like Earth. How many moons do you have? One? That's amateur. Yeah. That's babies talk.
You go there one time and you're like, I've seen it all.
Seen it all. One moon.
But Saturn, you go there, you can hop from moon to moon.
You could. I agree. I see we're on the same page. I agree. Yeah. We had some differences along the way, but the top two...
We got there.
That's
all that really matters.
That's all that really matters. So we all mutually agree Saturn's the best.
Yes.
All right. Would you like to go over our rankings
let me
one
run
more time?
Through. Number 9, I put Mercury, Venus, Neptune, Pluto, Jupiter, Uranus, Earth, Mars, Saturn.
All right, and for my rankings, number 9, I have Pluto, then I have Neptune, Mercury, Uranus, Jupiter, Earth, Venus, Mars, and then Saturn is number 1.
Yeah, shout out to Audrey for suggesting this episode.
Woo.
If people have suggestions of episodes, we're pretty much down to do whatever as long as it's not, like, offensive or...
Right. And also, the weirder, the better. Because, like, we can come up with the generic stuff ourselves, like, you know, movie rankings or, you know, our pilots or, you know, stuff. But some of our favorite weird ones, like American Idol second place winners, that was a suggestion.
The candle names
was a suggestion. This was. And we like the kind of, like, ones that we can be a little more creative with, you know?
Yeah.
And they're not, like, super intensive where we have to do, like, tons of hours of, like, prep work.
Yeah, we will be back. Like Alyssa said, it kind of depends on what happens with the writer's strike, depending on what order of episodes will come out. But there'll be something coming out this month, probably 2 things.
Yeah.
Including this, obviously, is one of those.
Yes.
But yeah, if you have any suggestions, let us know. We have our email, r3podcasts@gmail.com. There's our Instagram. I think we might be getting rid of our Twitter.
Our X.
Our X, because we don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, we'll keep it, but we're just not going to post on it anymore.
Yeah. I've been looking at what other podcast shows have been saying about it, and everyone's kind of just on the venue of, we'll wait and see. Yeah. We don't really post on it, so I can continue not posting on it. But anyways, we have our Instagram.
And our letterbox for our movies.
Yes.
Yes,
and
our letterbox.
At some point coming up, there will be a website.
Yes. Hannah's working on it, working away.
That has been a work in progress for like a year, but I'm almost done with school. So
using her almost degree that she almost has.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is what's going on. Thank you for listening, and we will be back. Bye.
Bye.
We would like to thank Joseph McDade for our intro music. He provides free music available for all kinds of creative use. The song that we used is called Sunrise Expedition, and you can find it and his other music on his website, josephmcdade.com. If you would like to reach us, you can email us at r3podcasts@gmail.com. That's R, the number 3, PODCASTS @gmail.com. or you can find us on Instagram by searching Research Rank Repeat.
Things are coming out. Shit.